real you. That's the real
Well,
you.
there was no pathway. That's what I'm talking about. You created a new pathway.
Well, there was a pathway. It was a rocky one. You know, it's like it seemed like it had already been taken by the outlaws of comedy, like the Kinnisons and those guys. And the new pathway seemed to be sitcoms. Everybody wanted to be Brett Butler and Roseanne and Seinfeld. Everybody wanted to get a sitcom.
Right, but even getting a sitcom, it was one shot on The Tonight Show.
Right.
And you were given a development deal by one of the 3 networks that existed. And if you were lucky enough to partner with the right kind of writer, then you ended up on the air. So it was kind of an easy path.
Yeah, but I had that path too, because I got a development deal from MTV's half-hour comedy hour. I did the half-hour comedy hour, and I managed to be it clean. So I did like a clean 5 minutes, and I got a development deal.
That's the half-hour comedy hour was 5 minutes clean?
Yeah, you didn't do a half hour. It was called the MTV half-hour comedy hour. So it was a half hour and several comedians.
Oh, so you only had to do 5 minutes.
I don't remember what I did, but it wasn't long, and it was clean. Maybe it was 10 at the most, probably. You know, there was those TV shows. They had a ton of them. I remember I saw Rob Schneider on it. I saw Sandler on it. You remember? Did you ever do half-hour comedy hour?
I didn't do the half-hour comedy hour.
You were already too big by then.
Well, I did Evening at the Improv.
Right.
I did Norm Crosby's Comedy Shop.
You were already really big by the time I was an open micer, because when I remember...
What you're saying, 94 is when you started, you said?
88. I started in the Comedy Store in 94.
So 88...
I started stand-up in 88.
So I had finished doing St. Elsewhere in 87.
Wow.
So I was already done. Like I was trying to get a sitcom too.
I forgot about St. Elsewhere.
Oh, I did. The thing that blasted me off, and probably my hottest point in my career, was I did a young comedian special. I did the 6th annual young comedian special on HBO. I got cast by George Carlin's wife, Barbara. Wow. May she rest in peace. And it was me. These were the kids that were on it that were unknown. It was me, Jerry Seinfeld, Richard Lewis, and Harry Anderson. And it was hosted by the Smothers Brothers. And after that, I could sell 10,000 tickets. I would do 2 shows a night in these outdoor sheds. And then the next, I couldn't get on the Tonight Show, but I could sell tickets. I was on Merv Griffin and Mike Douglas and all those. Johnny didn't like me. Well, the guy that was doing the casting didn't like me. Oof. So I went and met at MTM. I went and met Mary Tyler Moore. They did, at Radford. I met for CBS Radford. I went and met them on a general meeting to maybe get a development deal and get a sitcom, because they were known at the time in 82. That's right after I blasted off. They were known as the sitcom kings of the world. They had the Newhart Show. They had done Mary Tyler Moore. They had all these other shows. And Molly Lapata, who was the casting lady there, I'm sitting in her office. She goes, "Can you act?" I said, "I don't know. I'm a comic. I don't know." And she goes, "Read this." And I read this bullshit piece of shit. I don't know what it was, but none of it made sense to me. It was like all this big terminology. She says, "Come down the hall." I went down the hall and I met, now I know it's with Mark Tinker and Bruce Paltrow, Gwyneth's dad. And I read the same thing. I got halfway through. They went, "Thank you." And I went home. And my wife asked me, like, how did it go? And I went, I didn't get it, whatever it is, but it was the shittiest sitcom. There was nothing funny. I read this medical shit. There's nothing funny. And then I get a call an hour later to go down and meet with Brandon Tartikoff, who ran NBC. He created all the classic shows of the time, like Cheers and Taxi and all these shows that were at one time, huge hits. I went and met him. I went down there. This is on a Friday, and he had me read that same scene again. And they said, "We'll see you Monday," thinking that, I'm getting a call back for this shitty sitcom. And my agent called me at home and said, "You got it." I said, "What the fuck did I get?" And I got this thing called St. Elsewhere. And apparently it had been shooting for a week. And they wanted to recast some of the parts. I'm recast. And I played this guy Fiscus for 6 years on this dramatic series. That's where Denzel Washington came out of. That's where he launched. He didn't have, there's me and Denzel and David Morse. And, I think Tim Robbins and Ray Liotta and all these other people. Kathy Bates did their first guest appearances and acting appearances on this thing.
Mark Harmon
started there too. That's Mark
Sexiest Man Alive one of those years.
Yeah, well, you remember all the Sexiest Men Alive.
Just a few.
Yeah, and Bill Daniels, he was Kit.
Wow.
And Norman Lloyd, who just died at 106 at the bottom there. Norman Lloyd.
Who's that gentleman to the left of Denzel? I know that guy.
To the left, David Morse.
Yes.
David Morse. He's been in everything. And so was Bill Daniels, was in The Graduate. Mark Harmon's on NCIS. Norman Lloyd was the muse for Alfred Hitchcock. He was the bad guy in Spellbound.
Whoa.
So I walked onto this, and I replaced a guy by the name of David Paymer. Do you know who that is?
No.
He won. I got nominated for an Academy Award for Mr. Saturday Night. I think he played Billy Crystal's brother in Mr. Saturday Night.
Whoa.
That's who I replaced.
That guy's
another
great.
Another Jewy looking guy. It was
He's
Jew for
great,
Jew.
though.
Yeah, he is great, and I was so happy. I always felt guilty, taking somebody's place.
There's some of those guys that they'll play like a tortured intellect, like a very high anxiety guy. Like, he's the best at that shit.
He is.
When you like get tense, like whenever he's dealing with something, like, oh shit. There's some guys that just know how to fucking. There's like these Daniel Day-Lewis type characters, these weird characters. Like they just Seymour. What was his name? The guy who died of Philip Seymour Hoffman. Holy shit, was he one of those guys?
Yeah.
When he had a scene, like you get emotionally connected. You knew it was Philip Seymour Hoffman. You didn't care. You believed whatever the fuck he was selling, in spite of the fact you knew who he was.
I think that these guys have a real pain inside of them anyhow, and these jobs allow them to let it seep to the surface, and we get to enjoy it.
A happy person and do that.
I don't think these are happy people. All the people you mentioned, I don't know that they were happy. I don't know that. I'm not happy. So and I'm this goofy.
But you seem happy.
I know.
You seem happy when you're around people. That's why it's
the scariest thing. Yeah, I'm nobody's more confused than me. And right now, as I talk to you, I'm incredibly medicated, and I am.